Good morning. We got a sensitive microphone here this morning. Might be a little too loud. It's good to see you here this morning, and we're looking forward to our class here in just a few moments. Got our preacher back with us after he had his brother's bachelor party. I asked him how many fingers I had that while ago, but he just laughed at me, so I guess maybe, but he said he's all right, so that's good. Concerning updates, other than what we've got in the bulletin, that's all that I know of, and so just continue to remember these people that you see there in the bulletin. Remember them in your prayers. So if you'll bow with me now in a brief word of prayer. Lord, thank you for this time, this opportunity to be able to listen to you as we open your word. We're just grateful, Father, that we have your word. We're grateful for the power of that word. We're grateful for the guidance and direction that it gives us in life. We're just thankful, Father, for the difference that it makes in our lives. We pray now, Lord, that you'll be with Doug as he continues to look at this biblical history in 1 Samuel, that you'll open our hearts and our minds that we might be receptive. And bless him, Lord, in his sharing this word with us. Mindful of those, Lord, that are dealing with various illnesses. And Father, as we've been reminded of in the last couple of days of events 20 years ago, and we are mindful of those individuals, Lord, that are still dealing with this and will forever deal with it. We ask your blessings upon them. Your blessings upon those that are dealing with illnesses. Keep us safe now throughout this hour. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Okay, Doug.
Okay, last week we got a leader. Name was Saul. And Samuel anointed him. And remember we talked about back then that the anointing, there was a few things that happened. He was anointed privately, and then later on it became public knowledge in that. So right now, privately, he's been anointed. So Saul's going to be the leader of the people, and he's going to do some good things. He's going to help out quite a bit. He's going to help the Israelites out quite a bit with his ability to wage war, being on the Lord's side. I'm not real sure that Saul is a great military mind, but the Lord is on his side, so it really doesn't matter if he's got a military mind or not, because he's going to win because the Lord's on his side, and the people are doing pretty good right now. Yeah, they wanted a king. They wanted a king, and that's not real good because the Lord is their king like the Lord is our king. But if they stay on the Lord's side, they're going to be pretty good stuff going on. And we read through there, and then we ran into Saul's uncle, who I told you was probably Ner. And Ner was the father of Abner, and Abner's the military leader that Saul's going to have. So you kind of run into a little of that there, and you kind of see a little bit of the family. I know I didn't tell you all the family line, but there's a little bit of family there. And all the things that Samuel told Saul was going to happen as he headed back toward home, all of those happened. Ran into the three men, ran into those guys that were prophesying. All that stuff occurred. So Saul ought to have a real good idea that he's been picked. Okay? I mean, as soon as Samuel told him, he probably knew, but other than that, probably a real good idea he's been picked. I talked to you also about the bookcase or whatever it was that they had found back in the BC time period that had a male tambourine player on it and a male flute player and a male lyre player, or lyre, or however you say that word, and had a woman musician, a male musician, that they couldn't really tell what the instrument was because, you know, being a couple thousand years old is kind of deteriorated. So it wasn't working too good for them to figure it out. I talked to you about that, and we talked about Paul running into the guys that were playing these instruments. Okay, and that was part of the prophecy that was coming, that you're going to run into all of this. Samuel's telling Saul that. You're going to run into all of it, and he did. Right? And that's kind of where we ended up last week. And so now we're fixing to see Saul brought before the people and all of that. So that's coming up here very shortly. And when we finished with verse 16 last time. And when Uncle Ner said, hey, what'd Samuel tell you? He goes, well, Samuel said the donkeys weren't lost and to head on home because they're worried about me. Didn't say a word about, I got picked to be the leader of these guys. Didn't say a word to Uncle Ner. Didn't say anything to him. So then we're in the next point. And I'll finish reading the chapter 10, and then we'll talk about it a little bit, and then we'll get into chapter 11. It says, now Samuel called the people together to the Lord in Mizpah, and he said to the people of Israel, thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, I brought up Israel out of Egypt, and I delivered you from the hand of the Egyptians, and from the hands of all the kingdoms that were oppressing you. But today you have rejected your God, who saved you from all your calamities and your distress, and you have said to him, set a king over us. Now therefore present yourself before the Lord by your tribes and by your thousands. So they're fixing to walk through. We're fixing to cast lots. Okay, that's what's fixing to happen here. Then Samuel brought all the tribes of Israel near, and the tribe of Benjamin was taken by lot. And he brought the tribe of Benjamin near, and with its clans, and the clan of the Matrites was taken by lot, and Saul and his son Kish were taken by lot. But when they sought him, they could not find him. So they inquired again of the Lord, is there a man still to come? And the Lord said, behold, he has hidden himself among the baggage. Then they ran and took him from there. And when he stood among the people, he was taller than any of the people, from his shoulders upward. And Samuel said to all the people, do you see him whom the Lord has chosen? There is none like him among all the people. And all the people shouted, long live the king. And Samuel told the people the rights and duties of the kingship, and he wrote them in a book, and he laid it up before the Lord. Then Samuel sent all the people away, each to his own home. Saul also went to his home at Gibeah, and with him went men of valor whose hearts God had touched. But some worthless fellows said, how can this man save us? And they despised him and brought him no present, but he held his peace. So Saul didn't win over everybody. He won over a bunch of them, but he went over everybody. And he had the look, right? Remember we talked about that. He's a big, old, good-looking dude that's going to save everybody or run the evil guys out of town or, whatever show you're watching. He's the guy. Okay, so he's taller and all of that stuff. So he's kind of leader that you want for your military. And with the Lord on his side and the Lord giving him the spirit that he did, he's going to be what he needs to be for a while. Okay? And if Saul would have just kept doing all that stuff properly, it would have been for a long while, but he didn't quite do it all right. So that's what's going on there. Everybody okay with the reading? All right. God reminded him, though, right? You messed up again. He told him, you messed up again. I'm your king, but you want some guy from one of y'all's area right here to be king. Okay, I told you that I was your king, but I'm not good enough for you anymore. The Lord's kind of telling them that. Okay? And telling them, you still rejected me. After all this stuff I've done, you still saying, I want something else. You want to be like all the people around, and that's the worst thing we can do is want to be like everybody else most of the time. Yes, sir. Right. Yeah, I was wondering that too. I don't know. Right. Right. And it gets a lot of us, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. Okay, man tends to be that way. We tend to be envious and jealous of others. We tend to do that. That's unfortunate. And we all have it in us. And you got to control it and you got to suppress it. And some of us do a good job of it and some of us don't. Okay? And that's something the Lord wants us to be able to do at all times. And it's kind of tough sometimes. The Urim and the Thummim, that's the stuff. Am I doing that? Trying to stay away from it. The Urim and the Thummim, that's the stuff that's in the breastplate of the priest, and they bring it out to cast lots. So when they're casting lots, it isn't man. You know, I mean, supposedly it's not man here. Now, do I think there was times when God wasn't there? Probably. But when God's there, it wasn't man's choice. It was God's choice. Okay? So God did all of that, and that's why they did that. I would imagine there was some time in there when they weren't doing real well and they weren't following the Lord, and he probably wasn't in their presence, and they were still casting lots, then probably having to go on their own tuition, I would think, just as bad as they've been in the Bible. Had to be some of that, don't you think? Okay. I can get a little further away. Yeah, I can get back further. I don't know. The difference? Okay. Okay. But at this point in time, God is controlling this. So they're walking them through, and all this is happening because God's picking each group, and he's getting it down to who it's going to be. And, Saul's sitting back there by the baggage, and he knows what's fixing to happen. He's hanging out at the baggage. And then, they brought the tribe in, and then they brought the different families from that tribe, and then they brought the small family group. They had the big family group, and then they had the small family group, which would have been Kish, and then Saul was chosen. So each group walked by, and they're going to do this later, right? As y'all remember, when Saul's son went in and went into the Philistine camp and wiped out a bunch of them, and then the Lord stepped in and caused a panic, and all the Philistines were killing each other and everything, and Saul's wanting to know who's doing all of that stuff and everything. Well, eventually Saul and his son end up being chosen by Lot again down the road a little bit. And y'all know the story, and we'll get to it pretty soon. And then Saul's hanging out in the luggage, which is just where the people have dumped all their stuff because everybody traveled, right? I mean, they brought groups from all over Israel, and it isn't like you could just walk there in a couple hours. And nowadays, you could probably drive there in a few hours, but you couldn't walk there in a few hours. So they had all their stuff with them, baggage, food, everything they needed. And I know back in those days that a lot of times people allowed you to stay with them in their homes. I mean, that was really big amongst this group, amongst the Israelites. They would take people in all the time. Hey, but when you bring that many people all to one place, I can't imagine there being enough homes to share for everybody to be in there. So they probably had tents and all that stuff so they could live. That's my opinion. I don't know if that's true, but I would have to think so. And when they inquired about, is Saul around? They weren't casting lots for that. They had to ask the Lord, is Saul around? And he said, yeah, he's over there hiding in the baggage, which is kind of weird to me, but okay. But they had to ask the Lord about that one. They're like, hey, it's not around here. Okay. And then it said, the people said, God save the king, which really isn't what they wanted. What they wanted was for the king to do well, because if the king did well, how'd all the people do? They did well. When the king didn't do well, then people didn't do well, because if somebody came in and wiped out the king, they wiped out a lot of people too. So what you really mean to say when you say God save the king is, I hope he's very successful, and I hope his kingdom lasts a long time, and I hope great things happen, because if that happens, all the people are going to be in good shape. And that's really what they're trying to say there. And then it looks like Samuel drew up some type of covenant or agreement or something between Saul and the people. Saul, you can do this and this and this and this. but you can't do this and this and this and this. Okay? And so they somehow did that and then laid it up before the Lord. So I'm assuming maybe at the tabernacle where the Ark of Covenant is, maybe that's where he laid it up. I mean, I don't know that, but probably that's where it went, somewhere in that area, somewhere in the tabernacle, someplace. And notice that the Lord touched some of them so that they could be, I guess, like our Secret Service is today, they could be around the president all the time and take care of him. So he put some guys around Saul to take care of him, keep him from harm for a while. But you always have your groups, and I've been on both sides of that. I've been in the group that liked what was going on, and I've been in the group that didn't like what was going on. I'm sure all of y'all have too. We're all sitting here today, and all of us are on one side of the government issue, or we're all on the other side of the government issue. Okay, so because of that, I pretty much turned the TV off. I haven't seen news for about, I don't know, a year now, ever since the pandemic came out, which, well, it's not a year. 2020, yeah, it is a year, isn't it? Yeah, it's a year and a half now. I pretty much turned news off because all it is we screwed this up and we screwed this up and we screwed this up and we screwed. Well, we didn't screw up everything. Okay, we did some good things, but you never saw them. It was always negative. So I quit watching all that stuff. I don't even know how many hurricanes or anything we have anymore because I don't ever see the news anymore. And it sounds like we've had a few. We're up to Larry. I saw in the paper there's a Larry out there. I don't know where it's going, but I know there's a Larry. Okay. But and y'all may have done the same thing, but the news is just, wow, used to be bad, now it's horrible. My opinion. Okay, you may still like it. I don't know. You may have a channel that's good news. I don't know. I haven't found that. But sorry I went off on a tangent. That's not really the lesson, but that's how things are. We all get on one side or the other, and there's a group of men that really don't care for Saul yet. And I guess they will later, but they don't now. Yeah. No, not in Bible times. Yeah, troublemakers, which is worthless. Yeah, we got a couple of those around. Yeah, I guess they exist all the time. Kind of rough to be labeled at that point. Yeah, and he was, wasn't he? Yeah, but right, but in the eyes of the people, it was, yeah. Yes, it is.
Some people regard somebody as a troublemaker.
Right. Right. Yeah, lots of the Lord's prophets for that, okay, to the people. They were always trying to get things right, and the people didn't appreciate it. And as much as we are, when somebody tries to come in and tell us we've been messing up and you need to fix it, okay, well, we don't tend to like that either, but, if we're in the right mind and humility, we'll fix it. We'll get it changed. Okay, we'll do that. Anything else about chapter 10 or about Saul up to this point we'll visit on? Yeah. Right. That's human nature, isn't it? We're all flawed. Right. Yeah, he was, wasn't he? Yeah. Yeah, he was changing their whole system, wasn't he? Yeah. 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 He was. He was a problem causer. Yeah. To the people. Yeah. He was messing things up. Like some of us do when we start trying to do stuff like that for people and start talking to them about the Lord. Nah, trying to do right. No, I don't want you to do right. I want you to do what we're doing. Yeah, it doesn't mean you need to do right. Just do what we do. There's plenty of that too. There's lots of that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. It is. It is, and it occurs over and over and over. Yeah, and it's too bad. And I guess folks need to just be able to understand the Lord is behind everything, and a lot of folks don't understand that. They don't believe that the Lord is behind everything. You know, we understand that, but a lot of folks in this world do not. It does. Right. Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah. 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 It does. True. Yeah, and it's too bad we don't have that in all families now. It's very unfortunate. Yes, sir. Yeah, there's lacking of it in a lot of areas nowadays. Okay. Ready to read about Saul taking them to war? Okay, that's next chapter. Saul, get it done guy coming up. Okay, it starts out good for Saul. Okay, if somebody will read, let's see, I got the first two paragraphs marked here. So 1 to 11. Somebody'd read 1 to 11 of chapter 11. We'll talk about it. one campaign and one big old win, right? Okay, it's pretty good. Saul's doing good stuff. Do you remember about the Jabesh Gilead? You remember about that group? Joe, you told us the story. Remember when the man's concubine was abused all night and died? Well, what was the only group that didn't send some people to help with that situation? The people of Jabesh Gilead. So what are they thinking? Well, we didn't help Israel a bunch of years ago, so there's probably nobody going to help us. So that's the issue they have. They're sitting there going, we didn't help. And remember, the Israelites went and whipped on them pretty good too and killed a bunch of them. So they're thinking, the Israelites kind of hate us. We didn't help them back when they asked us to, and then they come and whooped on us. Okay, so probably nobody going to come help us. Okay? And possibly they don't even know Saul even exists yet. They may not be informed, because if they weren't coming back then, they may not have showed up when Saul was being named the leader of all the area. They may not know that there is somebody that's the leader now. But they did have issues, because they did not help the Israelites back when the tribe of Benjamin had problems. Okay, so they didn't have them. So they're sitting there going, okay, we'll check, see if anybody from Israel will come help us. Anybody. See if we can find that. And the other interesting thing I thought was, what was Saul doing? He was out working in the field, bringing the oxen in. Okay? I mean, how many people's kings out in the field bringing oxen in? So it hasn't really crossed over yet to where he's the leader of all the people yet. He's still one of the guys. And as long as he's one of the guys, that's a good thing, because Saul's going to do good. When he's not one of the guys anymore, that's when things start changing. Like I said a while ago, envy and stuff like that start creeping in. When he's the head guy and he's not getting all of the glory, then he has issues. Right now, he's just one of the guys, and they're doing good. Okay? The name on there, Nahash, that is just kind of the common name for an Ammonite king back in those days. That maybe not have been his name, that was kind of that name. Like Pharaoh was the king of the Egyptians. And you remember where the Ammonites come from? They came from Ben-Ami. Remember Ben-Ami? There was two sons. One was Ben-Ami. They came from Lot. Lot's sons. One of them was Ben-Ami, and Ami was the first of the Ammonites. Okay? So that was a whole different story back then, so we won't go there, but that's what that is. And this group is part of the Gadites and the Reubenites. That's what this group is from. Okay? The Gadites and the Reubenites. So you know what tribe it is and stuff. And they occupy the land that they kicked Ammonites out of. So Ammonites don't like them. They kicked them all out. And now the Ammonites have gotten stronger, and I guess this group's gotten a little weaker, and now the Ammonites are fixing to come in and wipe them out. And they say, well, just hang on a minute. We'll make a treaty with you. And he goes, yeah, we'll pluck your eye out, which, what does that do? Brought disgrace, and it did another thing. Your death perception is now gone, so you're not a good warrior anymore. You're not good for fighting against us if you only have one eye. So if I pluck your eye out, I don't have to worry about you attacking us as much, because you're not going to be as good at that. Okay? And it's disgraceful to allow somebody to maim you at that time. That's disgraceful to just allow it to happen. Now, different between somebody making it happen and you allowing it to happen. So that's not good there. It's kind of a sign of slavery when you allow somebody to maim you. Okay? That's some of the things that you kind of need to know about from background. Okay? Yeah. Moabite? Yeah. The Moabites, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, from Lot's son and grandson. Right. Right, and so they were his son and his grandson, which is kind of, yeah, it's kind of weird to be a grandpa and a dad at the same time on the same person. That's kind of weird. Okay. Notice that God kind of said, hey, Saul, you're going to be kind of picked up a little bit. I'm going to, give you a little divine touch and help you kind of do what you need to do to get the people together to kind of rally all of this. That's what the Lord did. And it said in there, and the Spirit of God rushed upon him. So God's given him the insight on things to do. And he takes and he chops up that oxen and spreads it out through Israel. And he says, okay, we're going to do this to your animals if you don't send people here to help us fix this situation. And kind of made a point to everybody, didn't it? They all jumped in. The part I didn't understand is, why did it list Israel separate from Judah? I mean, I know why later, but why did it split them now? I mean, later they're two separate kingdoms. What's going on now? I couldn't find anything. I looked through it, and I couldn't find anything on any commentary why they would list Israel separate from Judah, so it must not be important, what I deduced. Just when this book was written. Okay. Good point. Yeah, that's a good point. I just didn't find anything on it, so I didn't know. Mm-hmm. Right, that's down the road after Solomon dies. But that was a comment that was made, so that might be it. It might have been written later, because Samuel and Kings and Chronicles are all kind of blended. So, not real sure, although they think Samuel wrote 1 Samuel, but not all of it. But I don't know. Maybe Samuel knows what's going to happen. He was a prophet, so maybe he knew what was going to happen down the road. Okay. And then they met at Bezek, which is about 17 miles away. So it sounds like to me they marched away, 17 miles away from where the enemy was. Okay, about 17 miles. So they marched away to get there. Okay. And the Jebusites said, yeah, we'll surrender to you tomorrow. Come on out. Kind of set them up, didn't they? It was a bad deal for the Ammonites. They got set up. And one of the things I read was one of the strategies back then was to split your army into three groups. And we'd already read about it before, because Philistines split their army into three groups earlier. I don't know if y'all remembered that when we read about it earlier. Either that, or I'm way ahead and I forgot that it's way ahead and it's not behind us. But didn't we talk about it? But yeah, we talked about it, and they maybe not. It might be in the future. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm about 5 chapters ahead of this chapter right now. So it might be happening in the future, but I thought we talked about the Philistines splitting into three. Right. But I thought we talked about the Philistines splitting it into three a few chapters back. I don't remember. I know that that's a big strategy back then, to split your group into three so that you can kind of surround people and stuff like that and do all kinds of things. I guess you got to have numbers to do it too. But he's going to split them into three and go out there and pretty much wipe them out. And the last watch is the time when it's dark and it's just becoming light. When I talked about the last watch there, they're getting there at that time. And because of this, because of Saul taking the men in there and wiping out the Ammonites, he got a lot of support and gratitude from these guys. Because remember what happens later? What do these guys do later that helps Saul out? Now remember, who went and got Saul's body? These guys did. These guys went and got Saul's body off the wall after the Philistines hung it on the wall, him and his sons. These guys of Jabesh, went and got him off the wall. Okay, so they are the ones that he took care of at this time. So they had a great deal of gratitude for Saul and what he had done for them. So I'm not going to say it's going to help Saul later. The part I got was they were Gadites and Reubenites. Right. that was, the Benjaminites were the ones that did that to the woman. And all of Israel came to cause issues for the Benjaminites and destroyed a bunch of them. But the Jabesh people did not help. They stayed out of it. And so the Israelites went and whooped on them a little too for not helping. And also some of the wives for the Benjaminites came from them. Okay, so it's all this story is all kind of intermingled. It's all together. It all wraps around itself. It's, if you didn't do like I did and get to keep reading it, you probably didn't catch all of that. But that's one good thing about leading the study. You get to wrap your mind around it a little better. Okay? And you get to intertwine it all. Okay? And hopefully I get to bring that out to you, but I don't know that I do. But they were always gracious and always had great gratitude for Saul and took care of him. And David did the same thing. He walked in, he helped them out later, and he told them, I'll be there. You need help, I'll be there. So David wanted the support of this group also. And that comes in 2 Samuel. If we study 2 Samuel one day, you'll see David courting that same group and telling them he's going to take care of them because he understood that they were important and that they could be very helpful. Okay, so that's coming up down the road. Anything else on that war and Saul being successful early? He did good, didn't he? Really, of course, the Lord's Spirit came upon him and helped him a bunch. And as long as he allows that to happen and follows the Lord, he's going to be doing good stuff. Okay? It might get bad later. Okay, we got about like one paragraph left in chapter 11, and we'll finish that up. So if somebody would read the last from 12 to 20, or 12 to whatever, 16 or whatever it goes to, we'll finish it up.
Then the people said to Samuel, who is it that said, shall Saul reign over us? Who is the man that we may put to death? Saul said, not a man that we put to death this day. Today the Lord has worked salvation for Israel. Then Samuel said to the people, come, let us go to Gilgal, and there rebuke the kingdom. So all the people went to Gilgal, there they made Saul king before the Lord in Gilgal. There they sacrificed people before the Lord. There Saul and all the men of Israel rejoiced greatly.
Okay, so now they've accepted him, right? He came in, he rallied the men, and now the people say, okay, this is our leader. Okay, remember the worthless guys? They want to go beat on the worthless guys now, right? Because that's what my Bible said, because I went back and looked. But some worthless fellows. Okay? So they want to go and take these worthless fellows and get rid of them. And Saul, being a good person at this time and not having all the envy and all of that in his life, said, hang on a minute, we just had a big win. We're not going to go killing our own folks off here. So maybe he's hoping that they'll come around, but he's not going to mess up this day by trying to go out and do that other stuff. They don't need to. Okay? It's a great day. They need to celebrate. And Saul needs to show that he's a pretty good guy. And they're fixing to accept him. And they're fixing to have a big party, it looks like. And they're going to sacrifice to the Lord and all of that for allowing them to win this battle and all that stuff. So Saul doesn't want to get into that part. I'm sure Samuel probably doesn't want to either. Samuel probably doesn't want that to happen. So I'm sure he's probably a big influence on Saul. All the steps to being king are now taking place. He was anointed privately. He was shown to the public, and now all the people have accepted him. So now he is really their leader, and they've all accepted him, and Saul is the leader, and the Lord is behind him. Right? As long as Saul keeps doing that, the Lord will be behind him. Anything else on there? No? Everybody's okay? All right, and then the way my Bible's been broken up into pieces, it said the downfall of Saul from chapters 12 to 15. Well, I don't really see it in chapter 12, but it's the downfall of Saul's coming from 12 to 15. So that's how my Bible's broken down. I don't know if yours references that or not, but the highlight of Saul's career just happened. It's fixing to be on a downward spiral after this. Not immediately downward, but it's going to start going down. So not going to be good for Saul. But you know, he's gonna reign for what, another lot of years. I don't even know how long he's fixing to reign, but it's a lot more years to go. He's got a lot of years. I mean, his son, Jonathan, has to grow up and all this stuff and everything and all of that, and his other sons, they all have to become fighting men, so it's gonna be some years. 40 more years he's gonna live? Yeah, hadn't got that far to know that yet. I don't remember. All right, thank y'all.